Who's on grant closeouts? Were you on the North Carolina economic, whatever? When they were putting it.
Should I disclose that I was not?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, he needs help.
I'll give it a second. Good. Call this session of the City Council to order for one on Monday, April 26th. At this point in time, I'll ask City Clerk if she will please call the roll.
Here.
Blackwell. Joyner.
Here.
Walker. Daughtridge.
Here.
Bullock. And Miller.
Here,
Okay, we have a quorum. At this point in time, I'd like to know if there are any additions or deletions to the agenda. I know of at least one addition, which will be a closed session for economic development, which will be attorney-client privileged. Are there any other items that we need to consider?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
it's not
sir,
another
Councilman
item, but
Bell.
I just want clarification when we get to the consent agenda, that there was a building reuse that was listed in there. And I do serve on the Department of Commerce, but I was not involved in 2010 with that, with the Department of Commerce or the North Carolina Rural Center, which previously did those grants. So I just want clarification there.
Right.
for the record now.
For the record.
I assume there's no conflict there. Do you see any there? All right, being none, we'll just move on then with the agenda. So it brings us to item 4 of our agenda, which is consideration of the minutes of the regular scheduled city council meeting, which was held on April 12th, 2021, and B, the minutes and recommendations of a regular scheduled committee of the whole meeting held on April 12th, 2021, which we talked about crime statistics as discussed by Interim Chief Charles Williams, a proposed 3-year consolidated plan and annual action plan and analysis of impediments for fair housing choice by Peter Varney, our interim community and business development director. And then 3, a closed session, which was for attorney-client privilege and real estate. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Motion made by Councilman Joyner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second made by Councilman Blackwell. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask you all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by like sign.
I have a comment
Yes, sir,
before
Councilman
we get too
Knight.
far. I guess you deleted item number 2.
I did not. I'm sorry. I just jumped over it. So with that said, can we stand for a moment of silence?
And can we ask that we have a moment of silence for the George Floyd family and those who have died in the hands of gunshot
So be it.
from officers? Thank you.
Please, let's stand. I'm sorry. My oversight on my bad. Okay, thank you. Sorry for that oversight, guys and lady. With that will bring us to item number 5, is a community update by our city manager, Rochelle D. Small-Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Good afternoon. The City Council recently held its annual retreat in Asheville, North Carolina. The public meeting was broadcast live on the city YouTube channel. Sessions are archived, and if you would like to view, visit youtube.com and search City TV 19 Rocky Mount. The City of Rocky Mount's Business and Collection Services Department is utilizing the Community Development Block Grant CARES Act to assist utilities customers within the city limits who meet income requirements. The program is designed to assist with helping pay utility bills for moderate income households impacted by the loss of income due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Eligible households may receive up to $500 toward delinquent City of Rocky Mount utilities that became due after March 31st, 2020, and remain unpaid. For more information on eligibility requirements, visit rockymountnc.gov or contact our Business Services Center at 972-1250. The City of Rocky Mount's Community and Business Development Department is currently accepting applications for the Small Business Assistance Grant Program. All interested and eligible small businesses with 25 or fewer employees based in the City of Rocky Mount are encouraged to apply for CARES Act Community Development Block Grant, better known as CDBG-CV, funding to assist in the preparation, prevention, and response to the coronavirus. For more information or to download an application, visit rockymountnc.gov or call the Community Development Administrator at 252-972-1178. Our Community and Business Development Department will conclude Community Development Month with a virtual meeting on Thursday, April 29th at 10 a.m. that will focus on businesses and include speakers on downtown incentives, financial literacy, and minority contracting. The link can be found at rockymountnc.gov. The city's Tar River Transit Service is offering free rides to COVID-19 vaccination sites for those with scheduled appointments to drive up sites. Transportation is available from 8 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m., Monday through Saturday, to vaccination sites located in Nash and Edgecombe counties. Citizens who are interested in transportation to and from vaccination sites may call Tar River Transit at 252-972-1174, 972-1514, 972-1515, 972-1516, or 972-1517. All appointments need to be scheduled the day before the trip. Healthcare facilities may also call and schedule transportation on behalf of their patients. Free rides will be available until at least June 30th, 2021. Visit tarrivertransit.org regarding more information about general routes and services. Finally, following Governor Roy Cooper's recent announcement, we are preparing for the possibility of reopening all public facilities, including the council chamber, for council meetings and boards and commissions meetings in June. A committee has been appointed to formulate a plan, and it will be shared with you at the Committee of the Whole meeting on May the 10th. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Any questions? Like the record reflect that Councilman Walker is in attendance. Councilman Joyner.
Will we be keeping up with the numbers of the COVID virus? I know Edgecombe County is red, and I haven't looked at what Nash numbers look like.
Yes, sir. We will consider all of the factors. We'll look at the trends and see how we are trending here in Nash and Edgecombe counties. So the plan will be given to me probably early May, and then hopefully we'll be able to present it to you the first meeting in May.
Question?
Yes, Councilperson Miller.
Even if the council chamber is open to the public, can we be sure that the public doesn't come up and hover around people?
Well, yes, ma'am. I think I understand. So at the conclusion of a meeting, a lot of times the public will want to come up and say a word or
Right.
two to the members of council. So we will certainly give instructions to the public that enter into the chamber. Currently, I think the limit is 50. But for example, by the time I bring in the staff, that considerably reduces it. So there'll probably be some adjustments made with how many staff are able to come into the chamber, so as to give more opportunity for the public to be present. But most likely, we'll also continue to have those areas of City Hall for the public that, can't come into the chamber to be present in City Hall and still see the proceedings.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 6, which is presentation of the proclamation. And I'll read that out loud, and then I'll present it to Rocky Mount, our Public Works Director, Brad Carr. So the proclamation of the City of Rocky Mount, whereas public works is an honorable profession involving a variety of challenging and rewarding careers essential to efficient and effective operation of government. And whereas the efficiency of the dedicated and skilled personnel staffing the Public Works and Water Resources departments is influenced by their attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. And whereas these men and women contribute considerably to the quality of life of the citizens they serve, their commitment to excellence and variety of skills are an invaluable resource for providing the various services expected by our citizens. And whereas the public works infrastructure, facilities, and services are of vital importance to sustainable communities and to the health, safety, and well-being of the people of the City of Rocky Mount to help our communities grow and prosper. And whereas these public works facilities and services could not be provided to the community without the dedicated efforts and unwavering commitment of the Public Works and Water Resources professionals responsible for planning, designing, building, operating, maintaining, and managing the transportation network, the storm system, the stormwater system, the water supply, the water and wastewater treatment plants, the water and wastewater distribution and collection systems, maintenance of the city's motor vehicle and equipment fleet, the delivery of solid waste services, which are essential to service for our citizens. And whereas the Public Works Week strives to inform all citizens about the quality of people in government who work tirelessly every day to strengthen the bond that keeps us all connected, their commitment to high ethical standards, and the value of services they perform to encourage excellence among public employees and to promote interest in civil service careers. And whereas this theme, Stronger Together, speaks to the essential nature of public works services in support of everyday quality of life, I therefore, as the mayor, proclaim May 16th through the 22nd of 2021 as Public Works Week. Okay, that brings us to item number 7, which are petitions to be received from the public. The public petitions portion of the city council meeting is an opportunity for the public comment, and the city council appreciates your attendance and thanks you for expressing your views and opinions. City council values all citizen input. This is an opportunity to raise a question or present a request to the council. However, in most cases, council members will not respond to public comments, but may refer to a matter to the city manager or staff for follow-up. Time will be monitored in order to give everyone an opportunity to speak, and speakers will have 3 minutes. Please be aware that sign-in sheets must be presented to the security officer prior to the opening of the meeting. If an organized group is present to speak on a common issue, please designate one person to present the group's comments. If your comments are in regard to an item that is the subject of a public hearing, please wait until that item is introduced to speak. Time will also be monitored. If your comments are in regard to an evidentiary hearing, additional time may be granted. The City Council requests you please adhere to the following guidelines. Complete a sign-in sheet, address comments to the council as a whole and not to individual council members or city staff. Speak from the podium in a civil, non-argumentative, and respectful manner. Personal attacks which have the potential to disrupt the meeting will not be tolerated, and you will be asked to sit down or removed from the meeting. Keep comments to 3 minutes. This time I'll ask, I believe this is Macy Watts, to the podium. I may have the name wrong. Mayor Warner, okay, well, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Warren, and I'm here to speak this afternoon in reference to the fair housing. I live in the Branch Clark Street area, Rocky Mount, and for 40 years, I have been active and seeing things happen in our neighborhood that I've been in this neighborhood for 40 years. I saw it die. And what I'm hoping that what is happening in Rocky Mount right now would include more money for housing for the seniors and for the low-income people in our neighborhood. I'm very happy to report that I did get the opportunity to attend a retreat in Asheville. This was my second retreat that I attended since I've been active with the community. And I just thank the city manager and all of those that made it possible for more community people to be at the retreat. And I just want to say that I'm very excited about what I heard, and I'm hoping that the low-income communities will not be left out. We need more funding to take care of the housing issues in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. This time I would like to ask Mr. Samuel Battle to the podium, please.
Before you start my minutes, I want to ask the Mayor Pro Tem and the Mayor and Councilman in Ward 4, can we stand as a councilman, because we just lost one of the greatest hip hop rappers of all time, DMX, Black Rob, and Humpty. If we can do it for George Floyd, we should be able to do it for those guys too. Stand in a moment of silence if you don't mind.
I tell you, can we just recognize a moment of silence here? Then
It's always something, whatever. But I come here today to talk about the crime, the drugs, the gangs, the guns. Always talking about programs and everything like that. Programs is not going to stop all this violence, but it will slow some of this violence down. We coming in the summer right now, and things about to get a little hectic, because when it get hot, it turns up. What y'all gonna do about it? You know, you're talking about fair housing. That can take a year, 2 years, but we can make some programs happen tomorrow. With a little bit of this money y'all getting millions of dollars. You know, I know y'all ain't gonna support me on no program, but I would support somebody else that want to do a program in the community. It got to be somebody from the community to run that program. You just can't put anybody in these programs because people don't listen to other people that come from these communities. Number two, racism gonna be here. It ain't going nowhere. We can keep running our mouth about this situation, but I learned how to deal with a lot of things: depression, peer pressure, bullying, and everything. You know, it ain't going nowhere. And all I can say that 2005, I was the Untitled Champion in Rocky Mount, Nash County. Our folks, Keith Stones, one of his deputies, and beat him. We joke about this today. So what I'm saying, boxing, we need it so that these kids can get this frustration off of them. I don't mind a kid knocking somebody out as long as he's still here. When he shoots somebody, they gone. So, you know, yeah, I know Sugar Ray Leonard. I know some people that know Mike Tyson. Like I say, Mr. Walker, start your name, Councilman over there in Ward 4. Costa Maria was Mike Tyson's manager. And he was the same guy that taught James Bowen that got him the heavyweight champion glove in 1942. So, you know, I know some prestige people, but I can't deal with this BS. If you ain't trying to make nothing happen with these kids, it ain't nothing gonna happen. These kids are the future. And Booker T, Jim, Mr. Coach Wright, the great Coach Wright, when he ran that gym, the gym was open at 8 o'clock. Why we got to wait to 10 o'clock to go work out at the gym? And people are paying taxpayer money. We got to go at Planet Fitness. We got to go to Fit for Life to work out. And these gyms used to be open 5 or 6 years ago, 8 o'clock in the morning. Can y'all open them back up at 8 o'clock so people ain't got to waste their money and go pay somewhere else to go work out? They can work back out in their community. Yeah, it only open up on Saturday and Sunday. Can y'all open them gyms back up on Saturday and Sunday so these kids can have some work, get some workout with the weights?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This time I'd like to ask Ms. Sue Perry Cole to the podium.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm actually here for the public hearing, but the police officer told us to come forward, so here I am. My name is Susan Perry Cole.
Well, if you're here for the public hearing, if you would wait until we call that,
Okay,
that would
that's
probably
fine.
be better.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have Dr. Kim Koo. I'd like to invite you to the podium unless you're here for the public hearing.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
My name is Dr. Koo, and I live in the Englewood section of Rocky Mount. I actually came to speak on 2 issues, and I will deal with the public hearing when it's appropriate. But the first issue I wanted to talk about is the continuing murders of Black people in this nation. In spite of the ongoing and frequent mass protests and the Black Lives Matter movement, the killings have not abated. Now they are documented on camera. No more secret lynchings. No more excuses. It has to stop. The conviction of Derek Chauvin in the open murder of George Floyd is only a drop in the bucket if the police in many cities from coast to coast continue to kill with impunity at the slightest perceived offense. For me, these willful and unlawful acts are signs of the disintegration of our society and its social and moral cohesion, and the attempts by the state apparatuses to control social unrest that stems from long-term government neglect has been violent and brutal. Every city, including Rocky Mount, should consider measures to curb the ability of the police to shoot at will and increase its accountability to us as citizens on the way they behave. The militarization of the police has to stop. Otherwise, it can be interpreted as you are making war on us. I hope that this message gets across and that we need to do something about it because it's getting to the point of being an existential crisis, particularly for people of color. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Koo. Okay, that concludes our public comment period of the evening. Brings us to item number 8 of the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Item A of the consent agenda is consideration of temporary street closing requests from Laverne Bullock to close the 100 block of Northwest Main Street from 4 p.m. until 11 p.m. on Saturday, May 1, 2021 for a vendor block party in memory of Karen Jones, who owned Clean Sweep. Item B is consideration of the following grant project ordinance closeouts. 1, the 2010 redevelopment of Carlton House Restaurant Project. Item 2 is the 2011 Main Street Solutions Douglas Block Grant. 3 is the 2012 ARRA Main Street Energy Grant. Item 4 is 2013 Edgecombe Park Redevelopment and Reuse Project. And 5 is the 2014 Happy Hill Capital Project. Item C of the consent agenda is the consideration of the following fiscal year 2020-2021 ordinance amendments. The project ordinance amendment that appropriates funds for the occupancy tax fund to the general fund as appropriated in fiscal year 2021, the annual operating budget of $500,000. And a budget ordinance amendment which appropriates funds in the general fund $3,109,586 in the Powell Bill Fund, $2,345,586 for the transfer of surface transportation funds provided from the annual vehicle license fee. The requested and recommended action is to approve the consent agenda, inclusive of the approval of temporary street closure and adoption of ordinances as recommended. Do I have a motion?
I have a motion, but I want to.
Well, why don't you ask the question if you like.
For the consent agenda, B, item 5, Happy Hill Capital Project. Just wanted to mention it to our city attorney, and I'm the board chair at the OIC organization, and the attorney did agree that since I'm not receiving any kind of financial gain, that I can vote on this item number 5. But I just want to say that when the world was waiting on the George Floyd verdict, it was an article in the paper about the OIC, Channel of America rezoning, and it listed Ruben Blackwell, CEO, and Andre Knight as board chair. And so I just wanted to make it clear this afternoon that I am the board chair and that we can, according to our city attorney, can vote on item B, item number 5. And so I just wanted to make that known. And
So, thank you, Councilman Knight, for that acknowledgement. So do I have a motion to? Accept
yes,
the consent
motion
agenda?
approved.
And I have a second from Councilman Joyner. Is there a need for discussion? Councilman Blackwell?
Yes, sir, and I would like clarification as well about my ability to vote since I am the CEO of OIC.
Right.
Just tell them what we've already done, that we adhered to everything that was asked and spent much more money than we got.
But nothing wrong with dotting the i's and
Thank
crossing
you.
the t's.
Millions more. Can I say that? Millions more. Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there a need for additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the like sign. Motion carries. That brings us to item number 9, which is a public hearing. So this public hearing is relative to the proposed 3-year fiscal year 2021 and 2023 consolidated plan, fiscal year 2021-2022 annual action plan and analysis of impediments to fair housing choice required for eligibility for home partnership investment funds and CDBG entitlement allocation. Public review and comment for the period is April 1st through May 3rd of 2021. So I have opened this public hearing. An overview at this point in time, I think, is appropriate by the interim director of community and business development or his designee. So if you could give us a little update, and then we'll open up for any public hearing on the matter.
The plan, the consolidated plan, the action plan. The only thing that I can update on is that I had met with the Workforce Housing Advisory Committee last week and had reviewed the same information that we presented to the City Council at your meeting on, I think it was April the 12th. And so we had some discussion about that. About all of those things. The one thing the Workforce Housing Advisory Committee came forward with out of that discussion was they were asking that the City Council proceed with full energy toward development of the housing bond, to pursue the housing bond as quickly as possible. That was one thing that came forward from that. Secondly, we received this afternoon a letter from Legal Aid of North Carolina that makes the same request. They have reviewed the action plan, the consolidated plan, and if I can find the wording, they're asking for pursuit of the housing bond with all expediency. Those are the things that have taken place since we met last.
Correct.
Any questions about any of that?
Thank you, Mr. Varney. So hearing none, I believe that Ms. Sue Perry Cole, I believe this is what you came to want to speak to, and would love to hear your comments.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Susan Perry Cole. I live at 251 Rose Street in Rocky Mount. I'm a member of the Community Academy, which is a group of concerned neighborhood residents who've come together to improve housing conditions in racially segregated and blighted communities experiencing disinvestment. I'm also currently serving as chairperson of Rocky Mount's Workforce Housing Advisory Commission, also known as the WAC. April is National Fair Housing Month. The Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination because of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, and family status. Yet, after 53 years, when the act was first signed in 1968, we still live in a society that is racially and economically divided. In fact, on page 63 of the consolidated plan, commenting on the status of Rocky Mount's neighborhoods, the plan notes, some parts of the city have flourished, while others have declined with heavy concentrations of vacancy, deferred maintenance, and population loss, bringing instability to once growing communities. For the most part, the impoverished and Black residents of Rocky Mount have been concentrated disproportionately in a number of distressed urban core neighborhoods, which is where I have lived for the past 35 years. If there is one thing we have learned since 1968, it's this: the inequities in housing opportunities and neighborhood segregation we see today were centuries in the making. These patterns are the result of government policy, housing industry practices, individual acts of discrimination, and local zoning and land use barriers. I want to frame the recommendations I make today within the context of equitable development. Equitable development occurs when smart, intentional strategies are put into place to ensure that low-income neighborhoods and communities of color participate in and benefit from the decisions that shape their neighborhoods. Let me direct your attention to the affordable bond strategy mentioned earlier by Mr. Varney. It's worth noting that as far back as the city's 2003 comprehensive plan, the document included the following statements, and I quote, "The city must identify new funding sources for its housing programs, given the ongoing decline in federal support. In reviewing the new funding sources, serious consideration should be given to use of housing bonds to provide more flexible source of revenue to address the community's housing needs," close quote. Likewise, the consolidated plan before you on page 113 mentions, and I quote, "The city recognizes the federal funds received will not address all of the affordable housing needs in the community," end quote. The consolidated plan also documents the city conducted a cost-benefit analysis since the last analysis of impediments to fair housing choice on the following community revitalization strategies, and that includes the general obligation bond for affordable housing rehabilitation, construction, and homeownership assistance. Another provision in the 2018 analysis of impediments directed Rocky Mount to, quote, "begin to implement any community revitalization strategies to determine to be feasible through the cost-benefit analysis," close quote. Mr. Varney has already informed you of the actions taken by the WAC last week when we met, and that was a group vote that was unanimous to recommend the city continue research towards implementation of an affordable housing bond. So for all of the above referenced reasons, and after 18 years of patiently waiting for action by Rocky Mount's leadership, I strongly recommend that the city make the following change. Amend the section of the 2021 Analysis of Impediments entitled Goals and Actions to Address Impediments at the top of page 12 to include language that directs the city to continue research towards implementation of affordable housing bond. I want to quote in 1967 in a speech by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, "We must move past indecision to action. If we do not act, we shall surely be dragged down the long, dark, and shameful corridors of time reserved for those who possess power without compassion, might without morality, and strength without sight." Thank you so much for the opportunity to share these comments with you this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Would it be possible for you to provide a copy of the written comments you've made? I think you did a great job, and I would love to be able to read it.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here to speak on behalf of, okay, Dr. Koo?
Earlier when I came on, I did say that I have two issues, and one of them I've spoken earlier. The second issue is about the housing crisis in Rocky Mount. I'm also a member of the Community Academy and the Workforce Housing Action Commission. I'm also a member of the Rocky Mount Racial Justice Group. And although I do not live in a marginalized neighborhood or a stressed neighborhood, I'm very well aware of the severe crisis that is affecting all the major cities on people of color and poor people. And as a person of conscience, I feel that it's my responsibility to be part of the struggle for fair and affordable housing. I feel that, as I said before, we are in a period in which there's a lot of crisis, and housing has become a crisis of another existential proportion. The federal government has imposed severe austerity on all of us, and this includes decreasing the annual grants to cities and from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. There are our tax dollars. Much of the tax dollars that we are giving to the federal government every year has been shunted to military spending, while the super rich and the ultra wealthy has not paid their share of taxes, and as a result, federal funding and state and city funding has shrunk. So that's what austerity is all about. So we have to find other sources of funding. So what is proposed has been the general obligation bond. My feeling is that this is a short-term solution, but it means exploring and implementing the general obligation bond, which can also be used to address other public services deficiencies as well. Another consideration which I would really like City Council to look at is a community trust fund. And I feel that the trust fund that explores open land in the city that houses can build in would keep the wealth within the community for generations to come. And it is something worthwhile exploring. The last thing I want to say is that because I know that City Council's time is short, I have put out a 400-word letter to the Rocky Mount Telegram on the housing crisis, in my opinion. And I hope the Telegram will print it soon because it has never been more timely. And I do applaud the fact that City Council has taken the time to go on this retreat to try to solve the housing problem that we face in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to remind everybody that there is a public review and comment period that will last from April 1st until May 3rd. Are there any additional speakers for this particular public hearing? None. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, may I have?
Yes, sir. Councilman Blackwell.
May I speak?
Sure.
So the recommendations that were made by Ms. Perry Cole, how will we incorporate that into the content that was recommended? Was there a process for reviewing that and possibly including that?
Yes, there's really no process for review. We'll just amend the comments that have come from the public and include it in the plan.
Okay. So we're just out of curiosity, can folks review this until May 1? I'm sure it's published somewhere. I just want to make sure that for the record, folks know where they go look at it. If they have additional comments, where to submit them.
Okay, yeah.
It's on the website, so you can find it on the website, okay? All right, so then we'll move on to item 10, which is a second public hearing. It's relative to the appropriation and expenditure for economic development and consideration of a resolution authorizing a 6-month extension of the option to purchase the Genco property at a cost of $10,000. The cost extension and prior payment of $45,000 to be applied to the purchase price if the option is to purchase is exercised. So the recommendation of what we're doing today is we're receiving public comment. Is there anybody here to speak from the public on this particular matter? All right, hearing none. And also to adopt the resolution. So thank you. All right, I got a motion from Councilman Blackwell, second from Joyner. Is there a need for discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask all in favor by just representing themselves by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 11 is the presentation relative to the Community Land Trust by the UNC Capstone project. This will be a virtual presentation, and we're teed up.
As they're coming on online here, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is a group of UNC students who work under the direction of Dr. Jim Johnson, as well as Jeannie Bond. They are very much involved in their research, and this evening they're going to present to you the research that they've done specific to the establishment of a community land trust here in Rocky Mount. So certainly want to thank these seniors. Fairly soon they will be graduating from the greatest university in the world and coming into the community to share their knowledge and their skills. I've had a chance to review the presentation, and I have to tell you, I was very impressed, and I think this does lay the groundwork for further discussions about the establishment of a community land trust here.
Okay, thank you all so much to the mayor, mayor pro tem, and city manager, and council members. And we're delighted to be here today with you virtually. I'm going to turn this over to a group of really exceptional students in the public policy program who have worked on an analysis regarding our earlier presentation we made to you in January. So they have actually looked at putting together a plan for the land trust, as well as some fiscal implications for the city and also zoning and ordinance. So I'm going to turn it over to them for the presentation. Thank you so much.
Yes, hi. And just to give a quick intro before we begin, we are all seniors at UNC. My name is Allison Davenport. I am majoring in public policy and political science, and other members of our team, I believe, are also going to introduce themselves.
Hi there, my name is Taylor and I'm from Chapel Hill and I'm majoring in environmental studies and public policy.
Hello, I'm Jenna. I am from Cary, North Carolina, majoring in public policy and economics.
I'm Charlie. I'm originally from Mocksville, North Carolina, and I'm also majoring in public policy and history.
And hello, my name is Lucy. I'm from Durham, North Carolina, and I'm double majoring in public policy and global studies.
Okay, great. And as Professor Vaughn said, today we are going to be discussing the work that the Capstone team has been doing this semester on the Community Land Trust. So under the leadership of Professor Vaughn and Dr. Johnson, as well as in conjunction with various city officials in Rocky Mount, the UNC public policy team, so Jenna, Lucy, Charlie, Taylor, and myself, have been tasked with seeing how a community land trust could best serve the citizens of Rocky Mount. So starting out, the crux and center of this entire project is really just the goal of increasing homeownership rates in Rocky Mount. There are a number of studies attesting to the fact that homeownership brings great benefits to a community, including, but certainly not limited to, increased well-being of new property owners, renewal of neighborhoods, and increased safety rates in those neighborhoods. Higher educational attainment for children within the area, as well as, most certainly very important, greater financial stability for residents. So current homeownership rates in the city are roughly 50.6%, as you will see, we put that figure up on the slide, compared to a 65.2% figure at the statewide level. Bit of a gap between those two, but we know that in recent years, the city of Rocky Mount has been making a notable and increased push to grow homeownership rates, whilst also trying to ensure accessible and affordable housing, which is really where the idea for a community land trust comes in. And based on our research and findings, which we will go into shortly, this team's recommendation is that the city of Rocky Mount be supportive of the community land trust because of how well it aligns with those goals for increasing homeownership rates in a way that maintains accessibility and affordability for all residents of the community. A community land trust, I will also be referring to it as throughout this presentation, is a nonprofit community-based housing program that's centered around promoting homeownership for low-income families. Models or arrangements between the CLT can take place depending on how the community land trust is structured. But the universal framework for this is basically the CLT owns and manages the land itself that properties are built on, and individuals are able to purchase the buildings on said land. So in other words, land ownership stays completely separate from home ownership, and that land is permanently, and then residents are able to build equity on those homes on the line if they wish. But this model where a cluster of homes in one specific area is all part of a land trust prevents against housing participation, and it also really ensures long-term of those properties into the future. So CLTs also help to reduce foreclosure rates. Statistically, they reduce moving rates, homeowners a bigger voice in decisions that will affect them within the community. What we're trying to get across here is that an investment in a CLT isn't just an investment in a few houses, but it's really an investment and a move to support the community at large. Now, there are currently 15 properties, all of them vacant, some with homes still standing and others currently being empty lots that are held by an LLC and will be negotiated with self-help for transfer to the CLT after the legal entity is created. And it was this public policy team's job to establish a timeline for the transfer of those properties, to calculate the fiscal impact of the CLT for the city in terms of tax revenues, and also make sure that the plan for the CLT aligns well with current zoning and ordinances that are in place in Rocky Mount. So we broke those up into 3 separate deliverables and major sections that we will be presenting to you today. And now I'm going to hand it over to Taylor to talk about the timeline for the CLT.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. So based on our research, our team recommends that the Community Land Trust builds out over the next 3 years. This 3-year plan recommendation will guide the development of the properties currently proposed for the Community Land Trust and provide an overview of where the properties are in Rocky Mount. So as Allison mentioned, there are currently 15 properties owned by the nonprofit Self-Help, which would be transferred over to the Community Land Trust nonprofit. In order to space out development and show growth in the community, we recommend that the Community Land Trust begins with building 3 homes in the first year, building and reconstructing 5 homes in the second year, and reconstructing 7 homes in the third year of development. All properties that we recommend to be included in the CLT are currently vacant, and 6 properties currently do not have any structures on them. This allows for the CLT to not only provide safe and beautiful homes to 15 families, but it will also have a significant aesthetic value on the community, which would likely increase property values in the area and help revitalize the community as a whole. Our 3-5-7 growth plan over the next 3 years allows for the Community Land Trust to pace its development and allows for the community to witness the benefits of the CLT as it grows. So we based our recommended 3-5-7 development plan on 2 primary criteria. First, proximity to other properties and property value. We recommend prioritizing the closest properties first and then building out into the community so that people are able to witness the centralized growth and benefits of the CLT. Following the proximity of the properties, we based our recommended build out on the benefits to the on the model of the property value. Many of the property values are lower as there are no homes on the properties. Our analysis found that building homes would have a greater impact on the community than renovating, as it shows greater growth and development. These criteria have guided us to the 3-5-7 growth plan over the next 3 years and will allow for 15 properties to become a home for families in the coming years. Within the community, the 15 properties are primarily located within a 3-block range with a few outliers that are a couple minutes away by car. As seen on this map, the properties are centered around Goldleaf Street with 3 properties, all with vacant lots and noted in red dots on the map. The closely located properties in blue also include 2 properties on Goldleaf Street and 3 properties on Carolina Avenue. These properties include a mix of vacant lots and homes at various stages of their life. And finally, the green dots are 7 properties located around Rocky Mount. These include properties on Myrtle Avenue, Pennsylvania Avenue, Sycamore Street, Hill Street, and Tarboro Street, and all have a home in need of renovations currently on the property. If you'd like to take a more in-depth look at this map, you can access the interactive map that we've linked in the additional materials provided to you. Additionally, if you'd like to see each property in depth, we've included these properties. An image of each property, the estimated value, the zoning information, property size, and projected tax revenue. We hope the information we have provided on each property, as well as the proposed 3-year development plan, will help you understand the scope of. I'm now going to pass it over to Jenna to discuss the fiscal impact of the Community Land Trust on Rocky Mount.
Great, thanks, Taylor. So the next big piece in designing the Community Land Trust is to analyze its fiscal impact on Rocky Mount, on city tax revenues. When a CLT takes hold of a property, it permanently owns the land and manages it on behalf of the community, but structural improvements belong to the owner of the property. The city is going to lose tax revenue from the land value of these properties, but gain tax revenue from higher property values, which come from renovations and structural improvements. And beyond land and property values, it's important to note that CLTs accrue huge savings in other areas. First, there are additional savings to the city coming from the fact that they no longer need to spend taxpayers' money to maintain these vacant properties. When these properties are filled and have families living in them, the city doesn't need to spend money and labor to clean the properties up, cut grass, board up houses, and so on. And second, another area of savings to consider is that neighbors benefit from having occupied and well-maintained homes in their neighborhoods, rather than vacant or boarded up houses. Turning these vacant lots into homes with people in them starts to really revitalize a community in distress. So with the CLT's relationship to tax revenue in mind, we performed a cost-benefit analysis determining current land and property values, projected future land values, and future property values. We computed the current tax revenues on the land and structure of each property using the city's current tax rate of 68.5 cents per $100, and we established an affordable model home to estimate future property values for what we expect the CLT properties to look like. We then sum these values across all 15 properties to estimate the overall change in tax revenues. In terms of the land values, we know that Rocky Mount is a growing city, and new workers flocking to the area in the coming years would cause land values to increase. So to reflect this growth, we looked at the land value growth rates for Wilson and Jacksonville, which are two North Carolina cities similar to Rocky Mount in both size and economic potential. We then averaged their land value growth rates to 41% and used this value to run a second scenario that considers that anticipated land value growth in Rocky Mount. And on the other hand, in terms of property values, to create our CLT model home, we kept in mind that goal to create affordable and functional homes. So by researching property values throughout Rocky Mount, we set a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,300 square foot newly renovated home as our ideal model. And we found a home that fit these specifications on 609 Myrtle Avenue with a building value estimate of $75,050, which we then applied to each CLT property in our analysis. So as I mentioned earlier, when CLTs purchase a property, the city no longer collects taxes on the land values, only the structure values. And to show this point, I'd like to walk you through our analysis of one of the 15 properties to explain where the numbers come from. So this is 420 Goldleaf Street, a vacant lot proposed for the CLT. And from the city's tax database, we found the current land value is $3,750. And the current property value is 0 as there is no house on the lot. If land values stay constant, then the future land value is still $3,750. But if it increases at our projected 41% rate, the future land value is $5,288. And with our CLT model home, the future property value is a projected $75,050. So the projected tax gain for this property is the tax revenue of the future property value, $514, minus the tax revenue of the current property value, which is $0. And the projected tax loss is equal to the tax revenue of future land value, which is $26 with constant land values and $36 with our 41% growth rate. So then the overall change in tax revenue from this property is the projected tax gain of $514 minus the projected tax loss, which equates to an overall change of $488 with constant land values and $478 with land value increasing. So we repeated this process across all 15 properties and summed up our results to a projected $5,149 in tax gain per year from structural improvements and renovations on the properties. And for tax loss, we found that Rocky Mount will lose out on $709 from land values. This works out to an overall increase in tax revenue of $4,440 per year, assuming that land and property values hold constant over time. But with our projected 41% land value growth rate, we found that the city would still gain $4,150 in tax revenue per year. These figures are a great indicator that the CLT will develop new tax revenue for the city of Rocky Mount while also meeting its goals to create affordable housing, foster community bonds, stimulate wealth generation, and benefit the community. And again, it's also important to consider those additional savings to the city from no longer maintaining vacant lots and the benefit to the neighborhood of having more occupied, beautiful homes. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Charlie to talk about zoning and ordinances.
Yeah, thanks, Jenna. So thus far, we've laid out a plan for implementing the CLT. as well as looking into the specific fiscal impacts it would have for Rocky Mount. So the final thing we wanted to do in our project was to go through the Rocky Mount Code of Ordinances and Zoning just to make sure that the CLT would be fully compliant with city regulations. So first, in looking through the Rocky Mountain ordinances, we found that there are none that prohibit the establishment of a land trust. So broadly speaking, the project is allowed to move forward. We then also looked into the zoning for each of the properties and found that 12 were zoned as R6 MFA and the remaining 3 were zoned as R10. These 2 zoning classifications allow for all the types of uses we anticipate the CLT needing. These include single-family housing, accessory dwelling units, and open space, as well as multifamily housing in the case of those zoned as R6 MFA. But we haven't planned on the CLT building multifamily housing, but this option is there for the future. So we found that the CLT project is allowed to move forward as proposed within the legal context of Rocky Mount, but we do have a few recommendations which help to further the CLT's secondary goals of wealth building and community engagement. So our first recommendation concerns accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. Generally, ADUs are smaller units, typically under 1,000 square feet, which sit on a lot in addition to the main house and have all the main requirements of a dwelling unit, such as cooking, living, sleeping, and sanitary facilities. ADUs have a lot of benefits, as you can see. They provide supplemental income to homeowners who are able to rent out the units. They also help to increase affordable housing options for tenants since they're able to be rented out at a lower rate than a traditional house, given their size. ADUs provide additional housing options which might not previously have been available in the market. And so a good example of this is that ADUs allow seniors to age in place or age near their families. Seniors can live in the smaller ADU while an adult child or other relative lives in the main house and can assist taking care of them, or a senior can continue to live in the main house and have like a home health care nurse in the ADU. So in researching ADU regulations in Rocky Mount, we found that after a recommendation from the planning board, there was an approved change to the ordinances, which would allow for the general renting of ADUs. However, this change is not yet reflected in the online version of the code through Municode. So in moving to our recommendations, we want to ensure that this change is reflected so the general public and developers are aware of the change. But other than this, we just generally recommend the encouraging the building of ADUs in order to further those goals of the CLT. And so moving on to our second recommendation, this revolves around community gardens. As the name implies, community gardens are simply public gardens that are maintained and harvested by members of the community. Like ADUs, community gardens have plenty of benefits, which would benefit the land trust community. Community gardens increase access to fresh, nutritious food. They work to strengthen community ties and help beautify neighborhoods in which they are located. And in a greener sense, community gardens further support the ecosystem and can provide space for bee-friendly plants. So when we looked into community gardens in Rocky Mount, we did find that a few already existed, but we noted that they were pretty far away from current CLT properties, making it difficult for residents to participate if they so choose. In addition, while we found that community gardens aren't explicitly prohibited per the Code of Ordinances, they're also not explicitly allowed, which leads into our recommendations. We do recommend that community gardens are added to the zoning code as an allowed use for at least these R10 and R6 MFA zones, which are what the current CLT properties are zoned for, just to clarify the issue of legality. And then building off this, we recommend the creation of a community garden close to the current CLT properties, potentially on a vacant lot along Goldleaf Street in order to harness these benefits of the gardens I mentioned previously. But like I said in the beginning, the basic framework of the CLT is aligned with the ordinances and zoning of Rocky Mount and thus can move forward without any real action. But these recommendations are simply meant to further the goals and transformative power of the CLT. So lastly, I'm going to hand things off to Lucy, who's going to go over a recap of our findings and wrap us up.
Thanks, Charlie. So looking forward, I will lay out our key findings and our recommendations, just to reiterate the main takeaways from our work and this presentation today. So first, we'd like to recommend developing the properties under our proposed 3-year plan. Our proposed 3-year plan will quickly make dramatic changes to these properties, fostering a close-knit, transformed community. Beyond these 3 years and 15 properties, we know that the CLT can continue to increase access to affordable housing through accessory dwelling units and future expansion of the land trust. Next is to allow the CLT to fiscally benefit Rocky Mount. While financial gain is not the primary goal of the CLT, we know that the CLT will increase the city's tax revenue. We estimate an increase in tax revenue of over $4,000 annually. Next, we ask you to ensure that Rocky Mount's accessory dwelling unit ordinances to the CLT's intentions. ADUs provide a vast range of benefits, providing supplemental income for homeowners and increasing overall access to affordable units. We recommend that the recent changes to the city ordinances be realized in the public-facing ordinances. We also recommend that community gardens be explicitly permitted in the zoning code for residential areas, allowing for the expansion of gardening within this community. Finally, we'd like to ask you to financially support the Community Land Trust. This land trust will support Rocky Mount's ongoing efforts to create affordable workforce and family housing. Your financial support of the project will only further the benefits for future homeowners as well as the greater community. By investing in this CLT, you're investing in the future of Rocky Mount. We want to leave you with this quote that we feel encompasses the importance of a community land trust within Rocky Mount. Community land trusts provide a framework for organizing efforts to reimagine neighborhoods and cities as more than just places. We know that the implementation of this community land trust will help to reimagine and transform this neighborhood and community, creating affordable, accessible housing for Rocky Mount citizens. Our team has so greatly enjoyed working with the Rocky Mount City government this semester and supporting our mission of implementing a community land trust. We hope that our research will allow Rocky Mount residents access to safe and affordable homes. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much for your presentation. I assume that we will get a copy of this that we can review on our own time. And any other comments you have, City Manager?
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Capstone students and Professor Bond, Dr. Johnson, for a really great jumping off point. The council may recall that at the retreat, there was time allocated for Dr. Johnson and his team to come forward and to talk with you all about establishing a community land trust. However, that had to be rescheduled, and we're anticipating their visit with us again in May at the Committee of the Whole workshop, where we'll talk more specifically about how a process would unfold should it be a great stepping off point.
Councilman Blackwell, do you have a question or comment?
Yes, a question. So thank you for the coordinating this good and promising information. If we have questions or clarification that needs to be made, do you want that now or prior to the Committee of the Whole meeting, or do you want us to just bring it to that discussion?
Well, I think it would be great if we could have it prior to the Committee of the Whole presentation. That way, Dr. Johnson and his team can make sure that he's answering the questions that council might have.
Councilman Joyner?
Certainly want to concur with the city manager and Councilman Blackwell to thank Dr. Johnson and Dr. Jean for the presentation from the students and those from the city that have participated all along to get this information to us. And we look forward to continue to work to make this a reality for our city.
Councilman Knight?
Yes, I just want to say that I appreciate the presentation that we just moments ago, and just want to bring us back. The council had allocated about $240,000 in demolition because we had so many boarded up homes. And now we are shifting our focus to the community land trust and rebuilding in those fragile communities and giving our citizens access to safe and affordable homes. And I just want to say that this is something great and this is something awesome for our city and for our citizens to look forward to. Again, thank you, staff, city manager, and Dr. Jim Johnson and his staff as well. And just wanted to appreciate everybody for bringing this to us. And appreciate this council for continuing to push forward and to keep this as one of the main, one of our main objectives, not objectives, but one of our main priorities here in the city of Rocky Mount is affordable housing, and then also looking at the affordable housing bond. Thank you.
Any other comments? I do want to thank the students for all your hard work, staff for pulling this together. It's been remarkable and helpful as we go through this journey of figuring out how to best serve the residents of Rocky Mount. That brings us to item 12 on our agenda, which are appointments. Does anybody have any appointments they want to bring forward for any of these committees? I mean, last week we had a couple of volunteers. I'm sorry, Councilman Knight.
I don't have any appointments, but I do want to make mention that I would like the city manager and Mayor Pro Tem to look at putting the Animal Care Control Advisory Board in the future on our agenda. Seeing that there's some issues going on with that board. It's not an advisory board, it's more of a managerial board to our staff, and that should not be. And also the BTN policy as well. From that policy, it seems to be discriminatory when you look at the policy, and that's not what we intended for that to be. And so those two things need to be addressed. Thank you.
What's the BTN policy? Well, I mean,
Bob's Tavern and Nightclubs.
okay, got it. Thank you.
City manager, can we? Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Can we put that on the next city council whole agenda?
The policy for BTN as well as the animal control? Yes, sir.
Councilman Daughtry,
I don't have anything to say.
you had your hand up.
No, I'm just, but if you could send it to us prior to that so we could read it, I'd appreciate that.
It comes out when we send the committee the whole agenda out.
I have another issue I'd like to ask clarification on. A couple of months ago, we brought to the public square about our concern with Suddenlink services. And I did read a letter and saw an article in the paper about your involvement and response. Well, I'm continuing to receive complaints on a regular basis and didn't know if you have an update. Will we have a process whereby we're able to inventory the public's concerns? And then do we have a plan of action about a legislative agenda that will be able to impact at least Eastern North Carolina and Rocky Mount with options for other internet service providers?
Okay, so I'll answer you what I know, which will not cover the entire territory that you've just asked.
Okay.
I have signed on with a number of Eastern North Carolina mayors, in fact, mayors throughout the state of North Carolina, really asking the General Assembly to allow municipalities to actually create their own broadband systems. And they can elect other companies to manage that. They can manage that themselves. And so the idea is that we will more closely look like, or have the option to look like the utilities of Wilson and Salisbury, which are two of the only towns now that can have their own broadband system. So that's what my election there was to be able to create not just competition, but I thought it was a very good idea that the city of Rocky Mount should be also be able to be in the business should we choose to do that. As it relates to Suddenlink, I do have some correspondence left over from a month or two ago with some contact numbers. I'll be happy to provide you with those numbers at the conclusion of this meeting that you can forward on to other folks as you receive complaints. And I too am also receiving complaints on a consistent basis and just flow that through you. Now, you mentioned how do we collect that data? I don't know. I would like to maybe ask city manager if there's a reporting process, because I think that's critical that we measure that. And so, I have not really been doing that either, Councilman. I've just been trying to put out the fire as I see it. But I think that collectively, there'd be great benefit in having the knowledge of how many have we really touched? And is it still an ongoing problem? So can I ask you, City Manager, if you would maybe help us with that? I mean, just flip you an email. What would be helpful to you? Or
Yeah, I'll have to maybe also talk with the clerk
Yeah.
about receiving that
Sure.
information. From time to time, I do receive emails from people who are frustrated, as well as you.
And certainly not trying to add to your plate, you know.
Right, exactly. That's why I need the help of the clerk's office to field those and to compile them. So that way we'll have an immediate impact of what the concerns are. I would also just share with council, as late as last week, I have been in conversations, very early conversations with another provider in the state who is going around and actually setting up broadband systems in other communities. And so they're reaching out to different localities throughout North Carolina. And so I was approached about that. We had a great conversation. He's going to send additional information, and certainly I'll keep you apprised if, in fact, that becomes something that you would want to consider.
So I guess the take home right now is as we receive those complaints, just maintain a list. And when there's some opportunity to aggregate those, then you'll let us know, or clerk or somebody.
Right. Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I think it would
Councilman
be good for the public to, for this body to let the public know that, you know, we have no legislative control over any cable company or anything. It's not regulated by the city of Rocky Mount. And so we can't just call them up and say, go fix the problem. So that's what the big issue is. And I think there's some confusion within the public regarding that. So,
Yeah, but we do have influence.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing they said to us about electricities.
yeah, I didn't say we didn't have
So-
influence. I didn't.
so, right,
What I'm
so-
saying is, but we can't call
No.
1-800, go
no,
fix it today.
But they can call Senator Lisa Barnes, and they can call Senator James Galliard. They can call Representative Shelley Willingham and Senator Toby Fitch. And what my concern is that if this city council does not advocate for it, that people's concerns get lost in the ethers. You know, that it's no consensus, that there's no consensus, there's nobody pushing it. And if there's nobody pushing it, then we just lose. And as we're trying to rebuild our city, and especially in communities of that are marginalized, broadband internet access is absolutely critical. That's as critical as water, it's as critical as sewer, it's as critical as housing. Education depends on it, business depends on it, and people's entertainment and access depends on it. And so what I am asking is that we do make this a legislative issue and put it in the hands where people can make a decision. Because even though we don't have immediate regulatory authority over it, we should be able to speak for the 60,000 residents in our cities and tell those people who are elected to represent us in the General Assembly that this is a priority of Rocky Mount. And that's what I mean. I know we can't fix it ourselves. I agree with that, you know, but clearly people are calling us because we can fix a lot. And so if they're not calling their legislators, then their legislators, how do they hear about it? And how are they dealing with it? And I'm asking that, especially knowing that these big internet providers are big contributors of political campaigns, I just want to make sure that the people have the same kind of clout that those checks have when they're issuing checks to everybody. You know, I'm not saying who is getting what, because I don't know that. I'm just saying that I got sense enough to know that if they have large territories to cover and they're unchecked in their service and people are paying $300 to $400 a month, every month for service they cannot depend on, somebody's not motivated to move. And I'm asking us to be motivated to move.
And I think it's clear that we're all motivated to serve that segment of our population, and asking the General Assembly to make changes that would give us even greater influence and power. So
I'll just clarify, because you asked if the problem was still occurring, correct?
no, I mean, it is still occurring.
Oh,
I mean,
yes,
we're
okay.
all
I just
getting
wanna make
complaints.
sure that
The question is, you know, how do we aggregate that? Because there's power in knowing the number of instances that folks are saying, I've got a problem, raising their hand. And so, and I've not done a good job. I'm getting a lot of compliment. I know you are. I know everybody on this board is.
Well, we would guess it's probably 99%.
Yeah, well, well, I'm not one of the 1% either, so just for the record. So with that said, well, what I need now is a motion to go into a motion made by Councilman Knight, seconded by
Suddenly or close session?
Closed session.
Oh, we didn't say that. Okay. So moved.
And for Councilman Joyner to go into closed session for economic development. This is an attorney-client privilege matter. Before that, I think and so everybody in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. We are now in closed session.